along. Yeah, we will. My name is Prof Burawoy, and I come to you with a message of support from the Berkeley Faculty Association. We in the Berkeley Faculty Association know how dependent we are on your labours. We know this university would not exist without your labours. We know you often labour far longer than the hours for which you are miserly paid. We know that in serving your students you are doing work, they call it emotional labour, for which you are not recognised. We know that many of you, over 50% of your wages go to rent. We know that many of you leave the university heavily in debt. You're not so sure about that. We know you are bonded labour with a 20,000 offset in fees for the privilege of being paid a below subsistence wage. We know all these things. You are key, central, pivotal to this university. We know that your future becomes more precarious as the university reduces the number of tenure-track positions, leaving you with contingent labour. And we know that 50 years ago, across higher education, tenure-track positions numbered contingent labour by 2 to 1. Now, 2/3 of teaching positions are contingent labour, more or less insecure. And that is why we are out here around this fountain. This fountain and the other fountains that ring this campus, they are fountains of insurrection. In all my years at Berkeley, I've never seen such a massive strike. Even in the 1990s, when graduate students were fighting for the recognition of a union, it did not get this massive. So who is here? Who is here? Anthropology here. A few of you. Political science. Sociology. Ethnic studies. African American studies. Musicians from musicology. Okay, very good. What about Soc 1? Very nice. That's my council class. Yes. Remember, it's 60 years since Mario Savio, in his famous speech, condemned the university as a heartless bureaucracy and called on students to lay their body on its gears and wheels. We are here again to lay our bodies on its gears and wheels and to demand the reasonable. Remember well, you don't remember because you weren't actually born. But let me tell you, no one expected the massive free speech movement in 1964. It sprung, as it appeared, from nowhere. But remember also, it actually sprung from the burgeoning civil rights movement and from the political suffocation on this campus, in particular the outlawing of civil rights organizations. Just as today, the civil rights movement of the last decade will inspire your victory. Remember. You won't remember, it doesn't matter, but remember. Remember it was the police arrest of Jack Weinberg for setting up a table for CORE, Congress of Racial Equality, on the steps of Sproul Hall, that then led to thousands of students surrounding the police car in which he was held. It went on for 32 hours. And standing on the roof of that police car in Sproul Plaza, Mario Savio gave one of his famous speeches. Today, we are living another historic moment, like 1964. But the world has changed since 1964. We have moved from a university in capitalism to a capitalist university. Let me explain. After all, this is supposed to be a teaching. When I arrived here in 1976 to assume a position as assistant professor in sociology, GSIs were like serfs. You know, the serf works on the land of the Lord in exchange for the right to cultivate their own land for their families. 4 days they work for themselves and 2 days for the Lord, on the Lord's land. So the same with the GSIs. They worked then on their research and seminars for a portion of the week and did the Lord's work, teaching, grading for the other portion of the week, cultivating not land, but the minds of undergraduates. Yes. The GSIs receive monetary compensation as a stipend to keep them living. They were apprentices learning to be a faculty person. The university was a great feudal bureaucracy, largely decentralized. Each department was like its own fiefdom. The university as a whole treasured its autonomy, so much so that it denied students the right to partake in political activities on campus. No table for CORE, Congress of Racial Equality. No table for SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Nor for Democrats or Republicans. No outside politics on campus. The world has changed. What do we want? Fair. When do we want it? Now. What are we going to do if we don't get it? What do we want? Fair. When do we want it? Now. What are you going to do? Or what are we going to do if you don't get it? Very good. The university has been very useful for capitalism. It served to train, credential, and channel students for all sorts of jobs in society. It kept young people off the street, thereby reducing unemployment. It gave people the idea that as individuals they can make it in society. If only they kept their noses to the grindstone and steered clear of politics. But most important for capitalism, it absorbed the excess surplus that the continuing overproduction of crises generates. This was especially... What's going on here? Somebody's having a conversation with me. Very interesting. Having a private conversation with me, somebody over there. Okay. Yes. This was especially true for the golden years of the university expansion, those years of the 50s. Those were the years of the master plan for California's higher education, a utopian idea today, free higher education for all. The university was regarded as a public good, something that was good for all, not just the lucky individuals who found a place in the university. But note, who was that all? That public? It was largely a white middle class population. In that sense, we have come far from there. Not far enough, but this is a different university today. Today, the civil rights movement that had been originally barred from campus led to changes in the demographics of the student body, broadening access to the university. And let it be known, this wider access meant harder work for those street-level educators. And who are the street-level educators? You are the GSIs, yes, the teaching assistants. They carry the burden of 90% of face-to-face teaching on this campus. You have. Without you, there is no university. What do we want? When do we want it? And if we don't get it? Yes, indeed. Come the 1980s, things begin to shift. We move from a feudal university to a capitalist university. As governor of California between 1967 and 1975, and who was governor of California between 1967 and 1975? Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan. Yeah. And he began the assault on the university, threatening what was then a somewhat lavish funding. And then, in 1978, there was Prop 13 that restricted property taxes. And then there was a shift in priorities to funding for prisons, and funding for health, and funding for the university on a per capita basis fell. So that, whereas 50% of Berkeley's budget in the late 70s had been state funded, today 13% of Berkeley's budget comes from the state. And Berkeley is not unique. This is happening across the country. The public university is being turned into a private corporation. So, where does the rest of the funding come from? Well, a big chunk comes from tuition. Undergrads doing what?
Paying tuition.
They're paying what? Called fees. Yes, $20K a year. When I began in 1976, it was about $200. And in the 1960s, virtually nothing. Yes, things have changed. And we should recognize that it is redistributive for families with incomes less than 80K. The fees are reduced to zero. But still, this is an enormous difference from what it was when I began. Yes, student fees. In 2011, special year for many reasons, the revenue from student fees exceeded the revenue from the state. It was the first time the revenue from student fees exceeded those from the state. Remember, well, perhaps you weren't there. Perhaps some of you were. Remember, there was a huge demonstration and an all-night vigil against fee hikes in 2011. We came together, the student protesters and the Occupy movement. to listen to speeches commemorating Mario Savio. Those were amazing nights on the steps and beyond of Sproul Plaza and Sproul Hall. And then the president of the University of California, Janet Napolitano, and Governor Jerry Brown agreed to freeze student fees in 2015. So now, how are we going to make up the funding? Well, the answer is recruit who? Foreign students who pay twice as high fees. Yes. Yes. Well, it's not just international students, it's also out-of-state students. And then that was capped. The legislature said, this is the University of California. We cannot be recruiting so many students from out of state. And there was a whole kerfuffle about actually whether the students recruited from out of state were as good as the students who were being denied positions in the University of California. Oh, yeah. Anyway, out-of-state students, that was capped. So now we are left with simply expanding the number of students as an alternative source of revenue. And the administration here went in total panic a few months ago when Berkeley residents tried to restrict the number of students. That would have cost the university $57 million if the neighborhood had got its way. And of course, the University of California, being the University of California, applied pressure to the legislature, and the local ruling by the courts was overruled, and our campus moved smoothly on to expand the number of students. Berkeley is bursting at the seams. And that means what? That means high rents, housing insecurity, homelessness among students. It means students are commuting from ever greater distances. That's why GSIs can barely survive on their miserly salaries. So what do we want? When do we want it?
Now!
And if we don't get it?
Shut it down!
Yes. So to return to the desperate search for revenues, where else do they come from? Yes. You got that much money? I thought you were broke. Nah, it comes from all those donors. Donors and donors. What sort of donors? Those are the charitable capitalists who want their name on buildings. And then there are the uncharitable capitalists who want to brand their products. The university is often left carrying the bag. Yes, the capitalists, the donors give money, the building is erected, but who will look after the building? Yes, these are very risky investments. Only last week, cryptocurrency giant FTX went bankrupt, and that meant you may cheer, but listen to this. That meant $17.5 million of naming rights for the Memorial Stadium went down the tube. That's capitalism. Talking of the stadium, one recent chancellor had a harebrained scheme to reconstruct the Memorial Stadium, a seismic retrofit to the tune of $445 million. No stadium in the country had been retrofitted, reconstructed to that amount of money. And that contributes every year $18 million to our debt, rising in 2044 to $37 million a year. The idea was that alumni would pay between $40,000 and $225,000 for a 30-year ticket to watch an indifferent football team. Do you think that worked? No. No. But of course they wanted to get their football team to improve. They always do. So what do? They hire a coach that will perform miracles. But miraculous coaches are very expensive. The latest, Justin Wilcox, will receive $28.5 million for 6 years. That's $5 million a year. That's what it means to be a capitalist university. The football stadium debacle was in the era of spiralists, or that is what I call them, who spile in from other campuses or from the World Bank with their signature projects so that the university spirals down into further debt, while they spiral onwards, if they're lucky. Actually, the last one spiraled down too. Dabbling in capitalism is a risky venture. Alumni are often a source for increasing the university's endowment, and that is one justification for what? For expanding the administration. You need a development office to entice alumni to give to the university. You need, according to the figures from UCOP, you need 5 times as many administrators in 2014 as there were in 1994. 5 times. In 1994 there were roughly the same number of administrators as that tenure-track faculty, and now there are 5 times as many. This university has moved from a feudal apparatus to a capitalist one with very centralized diktats. We are all told we gotta find money. Money. Money speaks. Yes. Yes. Yeah. What do we want? When do we want it?
Now.
And if we don't get it?
Shut it down.
Yes, I guess you get that message. Yes. The capitalist university has other strategies of survival, and one is cost cutting. Instead of expanding expensive tenure-track faculty, the university employs increasing armies of lecturers, otherwise known as teaching faculty. Essentially, low-paid contingent workers who devote themselves to teaching up to 6 courses a year, if they are lucky or unlucky, paid about $10,000 to $12,000 a course. They teach about 40% of student credit hours on our campus, and they are among the best instructors on the campus, but they are a huge saving for the university. You might say that they are the super exploited. Now we see the crunch graduate students face. You cannot survive on your fellowships and teaching. Your future is precarious because the number of secure positions is not increasing, even though student enrollment does. So you are no longer serfs, you are wage laborers with, thank God, a strong union. You are struggling for a subsistence existence while trying to earn your degrees. Your battle is our battle. It's everyone's battle in the public university across the country and beyond. So Mario Savio has a message for you. Mic check.
Mic check.
Oh, that's pathetic. Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
After me. There's a time when the operation of the machine
There's a time when the operators of the machine
becomes so odious
becomes so odious,
makes you so sick at heart
makes you so sick at heart
that you can't take part.
that you can't take part.
You can't even tacitly take part.
You can't even tacitly take part.
And you've got to put your bodies
And you got to push your body
upon the gears and upon the wheels,
on the gears and on the wheels,
upon the levers,
on the levers,
upon all the apparatus.
on all the apparatus.
And you've got to make it stop.
You got to make it stop.
And you've got to indicate
You got to indicate
to the people who run it,
the people who run it,
to the people who own it,
the people who own it,
that unless you're free,
unless you're free,
the machine will be prevented
you will be prevented
from working at all.
from working at all.
The whole world is... Okay, the whole world is watching. There, we are leading something very important. Thank you very much.
Another round of applause for Michael, please.